Tensions are still palpable here in the Nagorno-Karabakh, the stage of multiple devastating conflicts between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but parts of it remain under the control of ethnic Armenians after the latest round of conflict in 2020, which is an open wound for both sides, who say they were fighting for what's rightfully theirs. Today, we meet the leaders of both countries involved in this dispute to discuss whether peace can be achieved and how. Mr. President Aliyev, thank you very much for having us here. I'm very happy to finally get this opportunity. I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. This region has been the stage of some of the most violent episodes in the South Caucasus' recent history. And the tensions haven't really gone away completely since the 2020 peace deal. To what do you attribute this constant hostility?
The declaration signed on the 10th November 2020 was not actually providing sustainable peace. It was not a peace treaty. It was a declaration, actually de facto that was a capitulation act by Armenia. Therefore, we started to put forward some initiatives in order to find a final solution to our conflict with Armenia, like mutual recognition of territorial integrity, sovereignty, international borders, delimitation of borders, non-use of force or threat of force. And we put that proposal on the table. So we, the country which suffered 30 years of occupation and which restored justice by force, we were the authors of new peace process. I would not say it is going very smoothly. We're still optimistic because we are now engaged in very active negotiations on the level of foreign ministers of both countries.
The document signed on November 9, 2020 is not a peace treaty. It's not a peace deal, as you said. In its legal sense, but not so much as de facto. A number of its provisions are grossly violated. I agree with you that it can be, and it is a certain concept of the future peace of architecture. And unfortunately, many provisions are regularly violated by Azerbaijan. They are currently violated. Now you see, you said in your question, speaking of Nagorno-Karabakh, and everyone understands that. But for Azerbaijan, for instance, Azerbaijan continues to claim there is no Nagorno-Karabakh.
You have just been back from Brussels, where you met the president of Azerbaijan. You have been meeting several times under the mediation of the EU as well. These peace talks have been filling many people with hope of lasting peace in this region. From what you're saying, we are wrong to be hopeful. So, can there be peace, and what can you tell us about what came out of these talks in Brussels?
Not only there can be, but there must be peace. This is my belief and my position. And this is what I believe in. But for this to happen, it's also important for the international community to be aware of important nuances, to be clear about why there isn't progress at a sufficient pace. Let me go back to our penultimate meeting in Brussels, when European Council President Charles Michel was present, and myself and the President of Azerbaijan agreed. Or rather, we reached an understanding that Armenia and Azerbaijan will mutually recognize territories. The territory of Armenia, 29,800 kilometers, and 86,600 square kilometers of Azerbaijan. the territorial integrity of each other. Up to this point, the President of Azerbaijan has publicly not confirmed that understanding. He has not denied it either. Now this is a subtlety that creates a certain lack of trust.
Yeah, I think it is right thing to be hopeful. These meetings actually allow us to touch upon very sensitive issues.
For example?
Like future parameters of the boundaries, because the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan has not been defined, because as soon as the Soviet Union collapsed, we faced this aggression. So how the border will look like? What will be the real situation on the ground? What will be situation with communications? Because Armenia has obligation, which is signed as a result of the Second Karabakh War, to allow us access to our exclave, Nakhchivan, but still it is not happening. So main concentration on paragraphs of peace treaty are made by the ministers. Our meetings, they just create, I think, a good atmosphere. But if we see a constructive approach from Armenian side, and most important, if they totally put down all their aspirations to contest our territorial integrity, then we can find a peace solution very soon, maybe even by the end of the year.
What does the EU bring to the table, to the negotiating table?
Actually, EU was not part of the mediation process during the times of occupation, when we had negotiations since 1992. It was the initiative of President of European Council, Charles Michel, who invited us, and we supported that because we think that taking into account the level of cooperation between Azerbaijan and EU and Armenia and EU. And I thought that the EU can be the best because our relations with the EU are based on mutual respect and mutual trust and mutual interest. So this initiative now is transforming into a very active format of dialogue, because we meet not only in Brussels, we also meet, for instance, at the sidelines of the European Peace Initiative format. Last time it was in Chisinau. And I think it's important because we do not allow situation to stagnate. Because if it is stagnation, if it's again kind of a break, then we are not guaranteed from any dangerous scenario.
I would like to start off by emphasizing that the advantages of mediation have long been known to everyone. But all mediations come with certain shortcomings. And if you'll allow me, I'll speak about the shortcomings. I assume that effective mediation is when there's failure to honour an understanding and will be followed by at least a show of political attitude towards the one that fails to honour that commitment. At the Brussels platform, for instance, we are not seeing this. I keep raising this question. Let me even break a secret to you. We've even prepared a document that we called an audit, where we enumerate that understanding states were reached at the Brussels platform, but were subsequently not honoured. And it's quite a thick package. It turned out to be quite a thick package, which is alarming.
Do you think that the fact that the West has been playing a bigger role here, the United States and Europe, has that antagonized a more traditional regional power broker, Russia, or the other way around, the fact that Russia is more involved, or one would say bogged down in Ukraine, has given more space for other players to come and try to help you and Azerbaijan potentially find common ground?
Let me remind you that these international competition scenes are not linked with us directly. Because you know that the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs were there and were active. And they are being created to address the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. But since February 24, 2022, the co-chairs simply stopped interacting. Some of them decided they do not want to interact with the other co-chairs, and that's when a problem came up.
Well, actually, Russia was a mediator of ceasefire agreement or declaration of 10 November 2020. And it was not United States, it was not EU. And our first meetings with my Armenian colleague were organized by Russia, in Russia. So after Russian-Ukrainian war, situation has changed. And we started to see that the United States and Europe became more active. And actually for us, it's not actually big difference who will lead the process or who will, to a certain degree, monopolize the negotiation process. Important is to come to a result.
I understand you have a long historical and complex relationship with Russia. How would you say is the Russia influence in the region at the moment?
As far as Azerbaijan is concerned, not many things have changed because our relations with Russia were already balanced. They were based on recognition of each other's national interests and, of course, territorial integrity and sovereignty. Russia is a neighbor to Azerbaijan and a partner.
Of course, by virtue of the events in Ukraine, not just Russia, but other geopolitical actors' interests in our region has been declining because in practice Ukraine is where all the international attention is focused. And yes, that is a factor.
Let's talk about the situation on the ground. The US, the European Union have all demanded guarantees over the freedom of movement in the Lachin corridor. What do you know about what's happening in this, which is a crucial gateway for people inside the Nagorno-Karabakh?
Now what's happening in Nagorno-Karabakh, there's a humanitarian crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh. What is a humanitarian crisis? No food is being supplied to Nagorno-Karabakh. No food. There's no external supply of food. A number of essential commodities are not being supplied either. Baby food, for instance. Medication is also unavailable. No hygiene supplies either. No other essential goods are there. Natural gas supply to Nagorno-Karabakh was interrupted by Azerbaijan. Electricity supply to Nagorno-Karabakh was also interrupted by Azerbaijan. The supply of fuel was interrupted by Azerbaijan. So in this sense, there's a real threat of hunger we're facing there, as well as health problems, and so on and so forth.
You know they deny all this, right? Azerbaijan keeps denying that they're doing any of it. They keep insisting that the Akjan road is accessible.
I don't know what you're referring to, because I'm speaking about the document that I signed, which has the status of an international document. It reads clearly that the Lachin corridor, which is under the control of the Russian peacekeepers, and it's not just the road, it's a 5-kilometer wide area, that it must be out of Azerbaijan's control, and it must ensure a link between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia.
Freedom of movement is not blocked. Since we established the border checkpoint on the 23rd of April, there have been more than 2,000 residents of Karabakh who easily moved to Armenia and back. On 15th of June, Armenia made another military provocation and wounded one of our border security guards, and temporarily the road was closed for investigation. But then it was reopened, Red Cross restarted again to transport medications and evacuate patients who need treatment in Armenia. But unfortunately, Red Cross trucks, when checked, we found smuggling goods like cigarettes, iPhones, and gasoline. Red Cross admitted that, and they communicated with us saying that they do not bear any responsibility because
the
these
trucks
people
were being used
yes,
by
but
drivers.
These trucks had their badge, logos, and the drivers had their logos on their uniform.
Some 5,000 people lost their lives in 2020 in both sides. I was here, I came to Nagorno-Karabakh, and I met many mothers of fallen Armenian soldiers. I've also witnessed the pain and the devastation on the other side, on your side, through the work of my colleagues here in Azerbaijan. But I remember speaking to one mother in particular who told me she blamed politicians for the war and for the death of her son, saying that politicians should deal with things in a diplomatic way and not fall into the trap of a war. What would you say your mission is? Is it to win a war or to bring lasting peace?
Well, to win a war was a mission of my life, of my political life, which ended successfully. So we won the war, we restored justice, and we restored our territorial integrity. And now we talk about peace. If Armenia wants peace, we will reach it, because we do not have any territorial claims to Armenia, and we don't want them to have any territorial claims to Armenia. People who live in Karabakh, in an area which is controlled now temporarily by Russian peacekeepers, they live in Azerbaijan, and they should choose whether to live as citizens of Azerbaijan, as ethnic minority, as any other ethnic minority, which Azerbaijan is rich of, or to leave.
You know, in any case, war is wrong. If there's a war, somebody somewhere did something wrong, or several people in several places did something wrong. But from the other side, what's the cause of war? The cause of war is the impossibility of reaching durable peace or of maintaining peace. And that impossibility, is it genuine? Is it real? Is it authentic? These are the other questions. My son was in the war as well. My wife was in the war as well. And now you're asking a question, a very serious question. It's a legitimate question indeed, but I think there is so much depth to it. Throughout our existence, humankind have spoken about the need to avoid wars, about the need to reach peace. And let's assume, and in this building, where the politicians were bad or are bad,
I want to know if you have a message to the other side, but not to the political leaders and the leaders and the politicians that you meet in these talks, but to the people.
There are sentences that people normally say, oh, we have long lived here and we will long be living here. I think all the words have already been said. By the way, there is perhaps something which I would address to the public of Armenia and the public of Azerbaijan, because the publics of Armenia and Azerbaijan both must demand peace from their governments. It should be articulated as a public demand, and peace, flexibility, and skill to deliver that requirement.
Well, I never thought about that, because that's the first time in my life I'm asked this question. A message to Armenians in Armenia. that we want to have peace with their state. Another message to them is to clearly realize the current geopolitical situation and the balance of forces. For many years, leaders of Armenia were persuading their people that they have the strongest army in the world, that if the war starts, they will come to Baku. So the war destroyed that narrative. We don't want another war, neither today nor ever in the future. And for Armenians in Karabakh, they should not follow their so-called leaders. These leaders were lying to them all the time. So Karabakh Armenians should understand that being part of Azerbaijan society with security guarantees, we understand it, with their rights, including educational, cultural, religious, municipal rights, they will live normal life, and they will also stop to be a hostage of manipulation. We offer them normal life, and I think if they listen to me, they should understand, and they know that I mean what I say.
President Aliyev, thank you very much for speaking to Euronews.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, thank you very much for speaking to Euronews.
Yes, I'm sure.